The next series of presentations are all on a series of about 3 are all on the theme of bricks and mortar. So we're now talking about how you can make your homes with the space that you live in work better for you. We're going to talk about, so we're going to identify some of the funding programs, as well as we're going to have Andre Spencer talk about making your home more accessible. So the first speaker on that theme is Laurie Cucheran-Morris. Most of you probably know Laurie. Laurie holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Sociology and a Master's of Science degree in Therapeutic Recreation. Laurie began her employment with the Multiple Sclerosis Society of Canada back in 1991. She continues her work at the Ottawa chapter, and for the past 8 years has held the position of Director of Client Services. Laurie's going to talk to us about a couple of programs that the March of Dimes administers, the Home and Vehicle Modification Program and the Assistive Devices Program. Laurie?
Good afternoon, everybody. As Terry said, I'll be talking to you about a couple of different programs that March of Dimes administers. The first one that I'll be talking about is ADP. But before I do that, I'd like to talk a bit about the history of March of Dimes. So March of Dimes is a national registered charity, and it came into being in 1951 to help eradicate polio. With the help of March of Dimes, it did develop a polio vaccine was developed in 1955, and after that, March of Dimes continued to assist those individuals who were affected by polio. So over the years, March of Dimes' mandate to offer programs has expanded to services for anyone with a disability. And today, there are more than 20 programs, and over 50,000 individuals living with a disability are served a year. So as I mentioned, the first program that I'm going to be speaking about is the Assistive Devices Program. And please don't get this confused with the Assistive Devices Program that's administered through the Ministry of Health. This is the March of Dimes Assistive Devices Program, and they're quite proud of it in that they had established this program long before the Ministry of Health started offering financial assistance for their ADP program. So I'll tell you a bit about this program. Again, it's delivered by March of Dimes, and it services the province of Ontario, and the location is in London, and the program provides financial assistance to Ontario residents, and there are 3 different areas in which individuals need to be aware, eligibility areas. And those areas are program eligibility, where an individual needs to be 19 years of age or older, and if somebody's younger than 19, then they would be applying to Easter Seals. They need to be an Ontario resident, and they have to have a physical limitation that affects mobility and a disability that is expected to last at least 1 year. Under income eligibility, those individuals must be in financial need. They do means testing, and the maximum income allowed is based on the applicant's income and or their spouse. And they look at the person included in the family size are the applicant and or spouse and or dependent children under the age of 18. And then there's device eligibility. The March of Dimes Assistive Device Program provides funding for the purchase or repairs of equipment, very much like the ADP program through the Ministry of Health. They provide assistance in purchasing or repairing manual wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs, patient lifts, walkers, pretty much any of the equipment that's provided through or funding through the Ministry of Health. But the one area that they do assist with are patient lifts, which I know are not covered through ADP, through the Ministry of Health. And they also do not cover hospital beds or specialized mattresses. So how does one get started if they were wanting to apply for funding in this particular program? They need to work closely with a healthcare professional who helps identify the need of equipment. one needs to budget accordingly. You need to decide whether you, in fact, if they can't fund the entire piece, where are you going to get the other funding for it? You need to select a preferred vendor, taking experience, quality, and cost into consideration for the pieces of equipment. The difference, again, between this particular program and the Ministry of Health ADP program is that this is funded by charitable donations. So if you've ever had anybody come to your door doing a door-to-door March of Dimes campaign, that's where the money is that helps assist this particular program. And as you can see, March of Dimes, in partnering with other like organizations, has helped fund in excess of $2 million worth of equipment last year. So if one were to get the process started, the first part is an applicant assessment form, and it is a screening tool. There's lots of information that they do require in this particular form. It's 8 pages long. It can be downloaded from the internet. You can contact March of Dimes, or they'll mail it to you. As I mentioned, there's lots of information. There's personal information on there. There's information about one's disability they're looking for, and there's also information about income. If, in fact, the applicant assessment form has gone through the first stage and you've been approved through that, you would move into the second stage, which is this stage, the equipment request form. And how this works is an individual will be invited to submit an equipment request form, and you need to verify your income. You need to provide a price quotation as well as an OT assessment. And these documents also help verify the initial information that was initially submitted through the applicant assessment information form. So the equipment request form. So what do they require on there? It's proof of income. So what can be submitted that would help substantiate one's proof of income? That would be their notice of assessment. And please note, if you are providing that right now from January to June, it would be the notice of assessment of 2010. And if you're looking for this kind of assistance after June, so July 2012, the notice of assessment would be based on the 2011 notice of assessment. They'd also look at one's T1 tax return summary form. If somebody is on ODSP or OW, any kind of documentation that speaks to that. And if an individual is residing in a long-term care facility, the confirmation of their net income from that particular facility would also suffice for proof of income. So funding approval. So basically it looks like you've gone through both stages. If that's the case, staff will notify you that your request has been approved. You're provided with a purchase order. The applicant receives a service confirmation letter and is at the end asked to complete a satisfaction survey based on that whole program process. So that, in a very brief nutshell, is March of Dimes ADP program. I'll now go on to the second program that I was asked to speak about that March of Dimes administers. It's the Home and Vehicle Modification Program, or it's HVMP. Some of you may have heard of that. So again, some of the criteria eligibility are very similar to the ADP program, and some are different. And the first one that's different that needs to be noted is that it was established and funded by the Ministry of Community and Social Services. So the funding, in fact, is filtered through there, down through March of Dimes. March of Dimes delivers the program, and it's only provided to individuals residing in Ontario. And as I said, it's a home and vehicle modification program. So there's different qualifying criteria. Some will be the same, so there'll be a bit of overlap between ADP and HVMP. So in order to be eligible for this, you have to be a permanent resident of Ontario. Again, you have to have a physical limitation that affects mobility and a disability that's expected to last more than a year. And again, you need to be in financial need. So how does one get started on this particular program? Well, there are 5 different things that one should really keep in mind before and while applying for this particular funding. You need to know what your need is, and you need to budget accordingly. You need to consider the resources, where the resources will come from. The grants have a maximum allotment, and at times some of the modifications that individuals are doing will not, the max will not cover that, so you have to keep in mind where else you might get the funding for to cover the costs of the modifications. You need to evaluate the limitations of your site. You need to research your options prior to committing, which includes all aspects of the project from contractor preference through job scope and finishing details. You need to take your time in choosing a contractor, interview all candidates, do your research, and check all references. So as I said, the program is entitled HVMP, or Home Vehicle Modification Program. Here are a couple of pictures. One is a home modification, which is the ramp, and the other is the lift or ramp for the vehicle. So the maximum allotment or capacity that they provide funding is $15,000, and it is a maximum lifetime amount for the home modification program of $15,000, and for a vehicle modification, it's $15,000. Every 10 years one can apply. If they do receive funding for that program, it's a maximum of 15. In 10 years you can apply again if it's a vehicle that you're looking for. So this process, how does this process work? Well, again, very similar to ADP. There's an applicant assessment. And that assessment, again, it's fairly long, it's about 8 pages, but it's a self-screening tool. So the information that they ask you to provide helps them decide whether they can move you on to the next round. And within there, again, they ask for information about your disability, about your income, about your family support, about dependents. I have printed off a application assessment, so if anybody wants to see a hard copy, I can provide you with that. But again, this can be downloaded from the internet, or one can contact March of Dimes directly. The income calculation is completed by the applicant, and the applicant's responses are prioritized by their needs. If you go through all of this and meet all of this, and all the questions for the initial application process are done correctly, hopefully you will move into the second round or second stage, which will be a modification proposal. So qualified applicants will be provided with a modification proposal form and guide. So again, a little more paperwork, but it does allow the applicant to develop and propose his or her own modification. And the information provided in this process, again, helps to verify the initial information that was provided in the applicant assessment form. So what they're looking for in this particular second stage is proof of income. And again, what can be submitted for that is a T1 general of the applicant and spouse or parents or guardians, ODSP, OAS, or Ontario Works documentation. Again, if you've gone through the entire process and your request has gone through stage 1 and stage 2, hopefully at the end you'll receive something that's referred to as a grant letter agreement, or as Richard noted, a GLA. It is a legally binding document which defines the scope, time, and budget of the project. The applicants work with their contractor to implement the project, which includes all different permits that need to be established before work starts. And the HVMP program pays the contractor directly with the applicant's agreement. You may ask, let's say your request is not approved or you receive a denial. What do? Well, you can reapply, and one would reapply if there has in fact been a few changes. There can be a change in one's situation, in one's condition, in one's family support, location where somebody lives, or if in fact you wait for a long enough time and still feel that there have been changes in these and you still require that modification to be done, you can reapply over a period of time. And where do you apply? As I kept referring to, here is the contact information for March of Dimes, and I believe this information is included in the resource list that was handed out when people first came in. But you can contact them by phone, by email, or you can phone them and ask them to send you the necessary forms. Thank you very much.